Jade Cargill was on the Bootleg Kev podcast this week, talking all about her AEW career. I am not familiar with Bootleg Kev. I've never heard that name at all until this week with this particular episode, but I like the guy. Just listening to the episode, he's funny as shit. He's got kind of he's got a fun attitude. And he does sound like a wrestling fan. Matter of fact, Jade kind of made fun of him for being kind of a wrestling nerd. So he's very in the know about wrestling. And he's talking about wanting to go through a table and stuff. If he ever got famous enough, I'd love to get invited on and go through a table. It was almost like he was kind of half-ass asking Jade if she could get him in. But at least when these people, because you hear so many people outside of the wrestling business that when they interview wrestlers, there's a certain idea of how they think about wrestling or a way that they look at it. This guy's a big fan though, and it's different when you get an actual fan. And he got Jade Cargill on, and this was another one of those podcasts this week where I could have picked any number of clips out of this. The whole thing is a treasure. If you're a Jade Cargill fan, I know she's got a lot of her haters out there, so you can pass on it if you like. But obviously, if you're watching this, I think you at least care to some extent about Jade Cargill, or maybe you care about Punk. I don't fucking know. But Cargill was on there, and it was just a great podcast, man. I could have pulled so many different clips. Her talking about working with Mark Henry and how she got into the wrestling business. How she actually made that transition and what she thought, wrestling. We're talking about wrestling all the way up to her respect for it now and how hard she's working. And she just comes off as such a class act. I love Jade personally. I'm Team Jade. When she first came into the business, I looked at her like, who's this bitch? You know what I mean? And her promo was kind of meh. And she wasn't that great in the ring. And it took me a little while to warm up to. And she's still not that great in the ring. And her promos still aren't that great. But I just love Jade Cargill endlessly. Anytime I hear her talk, these interviews, she's so smart. She's so well-spoken. She's so passionate about the business. Her head's in the right place. She's motivated like a motherfucker. And, as she said, she's wealthy, independently wealthy, and her husband is wealthy as a pro baseball player. She does not need to be a pro wrestler. She could be at home with her daughter and modeling. She does it because she has a love for it. She's got bit by the wrestling bug. So I fucking love Jade Cargill, but that's just me. But she was in this particular clip, I think was the most newsworthy, I suppose, as it kind of made the rounds this week, where she talked about her thoughts on CM Punk and working with CM Punk. There's a lot of bad press about CM Punk out there over the summer up until just kind of recently when Dax was one of the first people that kind of broke the news about, hey man, Punk's a good guy. And now a few other people have kind of come out of the woodwork as well. Will Hobbs has said as much. Ricky Starks has said praises about Punk. And now Jade Cargill. Check out this clip.
You said that you were hanging out with CM Punk quite a bit.
Yes, at Comic-Con.
What was something that you learned from Punk? Because he's my all-time favorite. I love Punk.
Just stand on what you believe. And don't be a pushover. And I admired that because coming into the business and being new, a lot of people, it's like you have to almost shrink yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know who I am. Again, I lived several lives. I've lived real life. And just because I didn't want to do this all my life or because I didn't put in the time, I refuse to let anybody look at me less than. And I refuse for anybody to treat me anything different because outside of these lines, I'm a human freaking being and you're not going to treat me like anything else. So I'm not saying that anyone treated me any type of way. I'm just saying in wrestling.
You hear about that in wrestling.
Yeah, of course, especially on the indies. And
sure.
I'm not familiar with the indies at all, but I'm not going to be walked over. And I refuse for you to because I'm Jade Cargill. And outside of these lines, I'm Jade Cargill. So I'm not going to let you address me anything less. So the fact that he told me to stand on what I believe and don't be a pushover, that stuck with me. He's a great guy.
How crazy was backstage the night that Punk did that press conference with Tony Khan sitting next to him and shit hit the fan? And it was like, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I have no idea. So I wasn't there. I had
Okay.
already left the stadium. I had already left. Right after my match, I left. I was
Right.
like, all right, like I'm out, guys. And so I heard about it just like the rest of the world at the same time.
Yeah.
It was pretty shocking. But
And
again,
I saw that look
yeah.
that Tony Khan gave him, like,
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. From my opinion, Punk's a great guy. He's been nothing but nice to the women's locker room.
Right.
He talks to me, tells me his experience again at Comic-Con. You know, we got really close because he was my tag mate in
Right.
the interviews, and I learned so much from him and so much knowledge in the industry. And again, he's, you know, been in 2 different companies, and
of course.
he can do whatever the hell he wants to do. So he doesn't need it.
Right.
He does it because he loves it.
Yeah.
And that to me speaks to me
Yeah.
because
You're doing
I
it
don't
'cause you
need
love
it.
it,
I
yeah.
do it because I love it, and I appreciate people like that.
Yeah, I think for as much damage as Punk does with his mouth sometimes, and that he did do in that press conference, I think you know, we got to remember that people are shades of gray. And though he might be a darker shade of gray or a lighter shade of gray, depending on how you want to look at it, he's not all bad. There's a lot of good here to dig into, and you know, we've heard it from multiple people now. Like I've said, Dax came out on his podcast and said, you know, I don't know what you guys think, but Punk's always been great to me. His locker room door has always been open to us. He's always been willing to talk to the young guys, watch their matches, help them with stuff. He buys everybody fucking massive Starbucks gift cards. You know, he apparently bought everybody in the women's locker room gift cards from Starbucks, and did it anonymously too. Like, didn't even want to tell anybody it was from him. He just wanted to support the fucking women's locker room. Punk's a fucking class act in a lot of ways, but he's got a big mouth, and that gets him in a lot of trouble. And he's very stubbornly behind his own opinions. He hasn't apologized for anything that he said, and doesn't sound like he's going to either. He's got his little comments. You know, he was laughing about it on his MMA show that he commentates on. And then he had that tweet where MJF's holding up the 2 plaques from The Observer, and one of them had featured Punk, I guess maybe a wrestling match of the year of some kind, or who knows what it was. I didn't look that deep into it, but he put a piece of tape over Punk's name, and Punk had commented, maybe you can find a piece of tape to put over the ratings so people don't see those either. Oh boy, classic Punk. So yeah, he's not budging. He's the same old as usual, but it's kind of gotten everybody talking. I know Dave LaGreca had addressed this on his show this week as well. Kind of speculating on, is Punk coming back? Should Punk come back? Of course, Punk has been posting pictures of him training again too, as the healing process is getting better. He's back in the gym now. Certainly gearing up for something, right? If not just to be in shape, I guess you could say that, but gearing up for a return, I would imagine. You know, he's got this love for wrestling, and that's not going to go away. So I guess the bigger conversation here is, is there room for Punk to come back? Should Punk come back? You know, we've heard both sides now. We've heard the damage that he's caused by, you know, in his own words on the press scrum there. But then, you know, we've also heard, you know, the locker room doesn't want him back, and that Jericho's an outspoken guy against Punk coming back. Obviously, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega are outspoken about it. Probably Hangman. But, you know, LaGreca was speculating on his podcast, Busted Open, this week about, you know, was Hangman Page's promo. He was backstage and being interviewed by Renee. He's talking about Mox, and then he was just like, hey, let me ask you about, nah, never mind, it's not important. And he's talking about having to kind of right some wrongs, and so I think that might be leading to mending fences with the Elite, probably, but it very well could be in reference to a possible Punk coming back. Look, I think enough for me personally, and I'm going to solicit your thoughts down in the comments below, as I would like to have a conversation about this, because it's very nuanced. There's a lot of sides to look at here, a lot of different takes that are, you know, legitimate takes on this. But I think my take on it at this point, and look, I'm a very well-known Punk fan. Punk has been my boy. And I lost a lot of love and respect for him after that press conference. Not that I'm a big Elite fan necessarily, but just that he really did bury AEW in that press conference. He was very shitty and dismissive and disrespectful to Tony even. And I just think, you know, it was in very poor taste to do that. But I think enough time is settled now. I think emotions get hot. Things get said. Things happen. I think enough time has passed now. I think enough dust has settled on this. And look, it's going to be another couple months even. Because Punk, even if they wanted to bring him back, he's not physically able to yet. He's still recovering. So I think by the time he's ready to come back, you know, and there's the rumor that was going around this week that Punk's on ice. There's no plans for, well, duh, he's injured. But there's no plans to release him either. I think they should not release him. And I think, you know, I have said at one point, and I am entitled to change my opinion over time, letting emotions cool, or just new facts come in, or just because I fucking feel like it, I can change my mind. And, you know, I had once said that I think, yeah, maybe it's probably a good idea for AEW to part ways with Punk if he's going to be a detriment to the company like that. But I think enough people have come out now in defense of all the good that Punk has also done back there. And just knowing that emotions run hot and shit happens, that, you know, there's money to be made there with Punk. And if he can get back on the same page, he can have feuds with Hangman, with the Elite. He can come back as a heel if he wants. He can chase Max for the title. He can do any number of things, but I think enough time has passed now where we could sneak Punk back into the mix. Maybe he has to come back as a heel. Maybe he has to apologize to the locker room. And maybe he has to dish out Chris Jericho a $500 Starbucks card. Who knows? But I personally think let's at least give it a try. If he fucks up again, if he does the company more harm, then maybe we'll cut him the next time. Just outright, we got to let you go, dude. You're a nuisance to this company. Because he did a lot of damage to AEW that they're still trying to come back from. It was such a bad blow to their image. Right down to like the Nick Khan interview where you know, Bill Simmons had mentioned, you know, you haven't had any real competition, you know, until AEW came along. And Nick Khan dismissively was like, yeah, how are they doing now? I mean, not as great, right? Not as great. And I think that's largely due to Punk and then Triple H taking back over creative kind of happening at the same time and people wanting to leave AEW to go back to Papa H. A lot of that did a lot of damage to AEW's image that I think they're still trying to climb back from. They haven't fully recovered from quite yet, but you know, like I said, it's a very nuanced situation, but I think I'll kind of wrap it up here and just saying that I think enough time's passed that we give it a go. I think if there's money to be made, it makes business sense to try to bring him back. Maybe don't put him on in front of a press conference anytime soon. And you know, maybe those fences can never be mended, and he's just always going to think he's right and always going to be an egomaniac and always, you know, belittle everybody else, you know, bury AEW next chance he gets. He's still doing it, you know. Maybe you could put a piece of tape over the ratings so people don't see those. He's not helping AEW, and I think that's why, you know, there's a very strong argument to keep him out of AEW because of shit like that. He doesn't respect it. He's not there to put them over. But, you know, you hear from all these guys that he's doing a lot to help these guys backstage. He has a love for the business. And certainly he's a needle mover. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. He's a ratings draw. He's a pay-per-view draw. He's a merch seller. So let's give it another try and dip our toe in and go from there. But that's just my thoughts. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this whole thing? Do you want to see Punk back? Is it time? Has there been enough time that have passed to kind of let things cool off? And do you think, you know, all these other people coming out, your Will Hobbs, your Ricky Starks, your Dax Harwoods, Jade Cargill now coming out and defending Punk? Do you think it's time to bring him back? Let me know your thoughts on in the comments below. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next.
Oh yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. Yeah, and you can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on the channel. Ooh, yeah. Dig it.